For the best part of 50 years, Rab have been specialising in down sleeping bags and jackets, and their latest range is just brilliant and I can't wait to tell you about it. So this year Rab have had a full juggle around of all their sleeping bags. However, they've kept their naming conventions because let's be honest, we all know what an Ascent is, a Neutrino and a Mythic. And they've used those following through and they've sort of cleaned it up a bit. One thing I really like about the way Rab have always done it is each one of those names I just mentioned, Ascent, Neutrino and Mythic, they all have a certain quality of down in them. So we've talked many a times on this channel, but again, a quick overview, the higher the fill power of a down product doesn't mean it's a warmer product. It means it's using higher quality down, so lighter and fluffier the higher you go. So the two we're talking about today, the Neutrino and the Mythic, if it is a Neutrino, whatever the warmth, it has 800 fill power. If we're talking about a Mythic, whatever the warmth, it has 900 fill power. So incredibly high quality, 800, but really, really, really high quality at 900. So that means lighter, fluffier feathers that will compress even smaller. That allows the brands like Rab to use less of it because it has more power to fill power. So you don't have to use as much to get the loft we need to keep us warm. One of the main things that Rab have changed this year, which I do think makes a lot of sense, but feels a bit confusing for me, is the fact they've changed the names of them. I don't mean the names as in Neutrino or Mythic. After that, they used to say how many grams of down was in it. So you might remember Neutrino 200, 400, 600, etc. Or Mythic likewise. Now they've changed them to what their temperature rating is, which to most people, including myself, it makes way more sense. So in the past, you had to do some kind of equation in your head to figure out what 400 grams of 800 fill power down would come to warmth-wise in a sleeping bag. Again, this makes sort of more sense. So both of these bags come in a 0, a -6 and a -12. The Neutrino also comes up to a -18. Please bear in mind, Rab have given you the limit of comfort rating. Now, nearly every brand I've ever worked with seems to do that, so it does make it a level playing field. And when I say that, again, nearly every brand, particularly Rab, give you 3 different ratings. They give you comfort, limit of comfort, and extreme. And what that means is, the comfort, you'll probably have a perfectly good night in a normal amount of clothes. Limit of comfort, you might have to wear a bit more of your clothes and you may be shivering a little bit. And that's the one they usually use, do remember that. And then they give you extreme. That's going to be a grim night, but it's unlikely you're going to die down to those ratings. Again, just for reference, what I've got here today is I've got the Neutrino -6 and I've got the Mythic -12. I won't give you all the stats on all the different bags I've just mentioned because, let's be honest, you'll be here all day, bit stat heavy. Obviously, go to our website, check them all out, come in the shop, have a feel and read up on them so you can figure out which is best for you. But I'll concentrate on what I've got here today to show you the features. So I'll start with the Neutrino. Neutrino sleeping bags for me have always been the classic. They seem to have the right sort of middle ground between lower quality but a bit heavier down, not going into the sort of top end things that makes it a little bit more affordable. But at 800 fill power, it's the right combination of quality packability without costing the earth. Now in previous seasons, Rab have had the Neutrino and the Neutrino Pro. They now just have Neutrino and they've taken the best of both of those bags and combined it in one. So like I say, I've got here the Neutrino -6, so that's the equivalent of the old Neutrino 400 grams of that 800 fill power down. Rab have now teamed up with Granger's, their neighbours, that have proofed the down so it can basically cope with being a bit more hydrophobic, a bit more water resistant than classic down. It just means it can cope with moisture and humid conditions a lot better than untreated down. So if it does get a bit damp in your tent or multiple days packing it away, it will loft up better and it will dry itself a bit better than the old down would. The outer face fabric of the Neutrino is Pertex Quantum, and you can see from the colouring here, we've got 2 different deniers of face fabric. This is where they've sort of combined the Neutrino Pro and the Neutrino into one. So we've got 10 denier here and 20 denier here. So basically the front of the bag, the area that might get dripped on is a bit more weatherproof and a bit burlier than the areas that you'll be lying on and often squashing. You'll also notice on the 20 denier yellow fabric we've got here, it's got this ripstop fabric. So the actual yarn on that is 70 denier. That's the same Spectre fabric they use on their super burly rucksacks, the Latoc range. Rab have now added to both of these bags a thing called Loft 3D, which helps get the most of the down they're using in there to give you the best warmth they can. It's a construction of offset baffles at walls and are twisted into a helix shape. Apparently that creates funnel points that prevent down migrating and maintain your comfort throughout the night. RAB have combined longitudinal and latitudinal baffles to create the best of the warmth to weight ratio they possibly can. This means they can cut down on stitching and cold spots and things like that, so really saving every gram they can and get as much warmth as they can. It's got a really cool anti-snag two-way zip, which just means you can do it up in confidence, knowing you're not going to snag it in the middle of the night. And of course you've got a little zip pocket here for storing maybe your alarm or your phone, because you don't want to miss those alpine starts. There's an extra sort of neck baffle or gaiter here, so you can trap all your hot air in and feel really snuggly. So I think that makes the Neutrino range the ultimate all-rounder. It combines all the great combinations from durability, packability, and great warmth to weight ratio. So while that Neutrino is the all-rounder, the Mythic is definitely specialist. RAB have used all their top spec features to make the Mythic. Also, a bit like the Neutrino, the Mythic this year has had a clean-up. There used to be Mythic Ultra and the Mythic, and they've just combined the one. We now have the Mythic. Once again, they've got rid of the 200, 400, whatever. They now tell you the limit of comfort, and this is the -12. Now the whole Mythic range, whether it's a 0, the -6, the -12, has 900 filled down. That's extremely high quality. It only really goes up to 1,000, so it's nearly top of the tree. Again, it's got that Granger's Down Defend technology, so it will stand up to moisture better than the average sleeping bag. And again, it's got that Loft 3D technology to give you maximum loft and as much warmth for your weight as you can. The face fabric is 10 denier Pertex Quantum throughout, giving a great combination of durability and packability and weight saving. And this time they've got that 70 denier Spectre yarn ripstop throughout the whole sleeping bag. That gives RAB that ability to use that 10 denier really light face fabric with the extra durability of the ripstop. Both these new bags actually feature this sidewall baffle construction, which, if I'm honest, it seems quite apparent. You can see it because it means it stands a little bit prouder, which allows a little bit more loft for the down. Also makes it a bit easier if you're a side sleeper. Now moving on to one of the main events of the Mythic bag. You can see it sparkling away at you there. It's the tilt lining. So this is a 10 denier fabric, and tilt stands for thermo-ionic lining technology. Now simply, it's a thin bit of metal. So that helps with radiant heat. So simply, it traps more of the heat you're creating back in and giving you the best warmth to weight ratio they can possibly imagine. Now, something to bear in mind, all these temperature ratings I keep giving you, like the -12 I've got here, that's the EN test standard. So what that means is Copperman in the chamber, all these scientific tests to see how warm it can be. Apparently the tilt lining doesn't come into that. So they have to put -12. RAB actually think it could be a little bit warmer because of the tilt lining, but that's really hard to measure scientifically. What you'll notice with the Mythic versus the Neutrino and some of their other bags is it is trying to be really lightweight and as warm as it can be. So actually you don't get a full length zip because zips lose quite a lot of warmth. Also, while the anti-snag zip's really nice, it is quite chunky and weighty, so they've gone for a lighter zip on this. It still seems to run nice and smoothly though. Just to give you a little bit of reference, so obviously I've got the Mythic -12 here. That weighs in at 920 grams, which is extremely light for something so warm. But let's say we were comparing like for like. I've got the -6 here, the Neutrino, and imagine this was a -6 of the Mythic. The Neutrino would weigh in at 870 grams, whereas the Mythic would only be 700 grams. I know that's not that much difference in terms of grams, but percentage-wise, it's quite a lot. If you add that up, all throughout your kit is quite a weight saving. Please bear in mind that the outer face fabrics and the inners as well are of course PFAS free. One thing when you're comparing RAB sleeping bags, warmth, weight and everything compared to other brands is the fact that I think they're quite generous. I'm 6'4", 90 odd kilograms, and I fit inside a regular bag. Many other brands, I would absolutely have to go to a long. So if you think you're comparing one of their regulars versus a regular from another brand that might be shorter, you're getting a bit more sleeping bag for your money and for your weight. And another cool thing about RAB sleeping bags is they're still stuffed in Derbyshire. So that's one of the most skillful parts of making a sleeping bag, and that's done in Alfreton in Derbyshire. With both these sleeping bags, you get 2 bags to store them in. You get the storage bag for at home, which just zips up, gives you a lot of space so it can keep lofted up. Remember, don't keep down compressed for too long. It might learn being like that. but you also get a waterproof dry bag that squishes it really small for when you're on your adventures. So I think that's a really cool change from Rab. I think they've done a really good job of cleaning up the range, but also making it much more usable and much more obvious which is the bag for you. I hope you found this video useful. Obviously, we've got loads of videos like this with lots of tips and kit reviews. Maybe consider subscribing to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a thing. And if you get a chance, come to the shop. We're in the heart of the Peak District in Hathersage. Come and try them out, have a little lie down in the shop, or check out all the stats on our website at outside.co.uk.